The best thing about the future is that it comes only one day at a time. Great Britain has lost an empire and has not yet found a role. If we learn the art of yielding what must be yielded to the changing present, we can save the best of the past. The great corrupter of public man is the ego. Looking at the mirror distracts one's attention from the problem. The manner in which one endures what must be endured is more important than the thing that must be endured. The greatest mistake I made was not to die in office. The first requirement of a statesman is that he be dull. A memorandum is written not to inform the reader but to protect the writer. Negotiation in the classic diplomatic sense assumes parties more anxious to agree than to disagree. No people in history have ever survived who thought they could protect their freedom by making themselves inoffensive to their enemies. I will undoubtedly have to seek what is happily known as gainful employment, which I am glad to say does not describe holding public office. Controversial proposals, once accepted, soon become hallowed. Washington is like a self-sealing tank on a military aircraft. When a bullet passes through, it closes up. We have actively sought and are actively seeking to make the United Nations an effective instrument of international cooperation. Negotiating in the classic diplomatic sense assumes parties more anxious to agree than to disagree. You pray for rain, you gotta deal with the mud too. That's a part of it. Man gives you the award, but God gives you the reward. My faith helps me understand that circumstances don't dictate my happiness, my inner peace. I've worked in a factory. I was a garbage man. I worked in a post office. It's not that long ago. I like to think that I'm just a regular guy. If you have an enemy, then learn and know your enemy. Don't just be mad at him or her. If I am a cup maker, I'm interested in making the best cup I possibly can. My effort goes into that cup, not what people think about it. Where I think the most work needs to be done is behind the camera, not in front of it. The last few years I've been saying I was ready to quit. It wasn't that interesting to me. Now that I'm directing, it's all new again. When I did A Soldier's Story, I was very young and green and thought I knew everything. Now I know everything. One good thing about acting in film is that it's good therapy. I'm not in the loop. I don't know any actors, really, just the ones I work with. You don't know when you're being watched. That's one of the weird things about celebrity. It's my least favorite part of acting, celebrity. Meryl and Katharine Hepburn are probably the two greatest actresses of this and the last century. I haven't been unemployed for 20 years. I'm an exception to the rule. I wasn't allowed to go to movies when I was a kid. My father was a minister. 101 Dalmatians and King of Kings. That was the extent of it. I say luck is when an opportunity comes along and you're prepared for it. I think a role model is a mentor, someone you see on a daily basis, and you learn from them. I'd be more frightened by not using whatever abilities I'd been given. I'd be more frightened by procrastination and laziness. I never really had the classic struggle. I had faith. Acting is just a way of making a living, the family is life. You have to grab moments when they happen. I like to improvise and ad-lib. My mother never gave up on me. I messed up in school so much they were sending me home, but my mother sent me right back. The time to worrying about flying is when you're on the ground. When you're up in the air, it's too late. No point in worrying about it then. I work hard for the audience. It's entertainment. I don't need validation. I think the bottom of the totem pole is African American women, or women of color. I think they get the least opportunities in Hollywood. Any good piece of material like Shakespeare ought to be open to reinterpretation. The poorest people are the sweetest people. I still have my unemployment books, and I remember when I worked for the sanitation department in the post office. My role 14 years ago in Richard III. That was the first time I played a bad guy and learned a lot about it. They have all the fun. My ultimate life dream project is my kids, my family. I'm not a film buff. I don't watch a lot of movies. I don't concern myself with award. I'd been to the party enough times to know it really didn't matter. I played Othello, but I didn't sit around thinking how Laurence Olivier did it when he played it. That wouldn't do me any good. I've been fortunate. I don't pick scripts. Scripts pick me. Dakota Fanning is a child, but she is a wonderful actor. I don't know what a child actor is. She's an actor who's a child. I like to use the hard times in the past to motivate me today. Check your ego at the door. The ego can be the great success inhibitor. It can kill opportunities, and it can kill success. Life is anything but predictable. Life is anything but predictable. I found that with depression, one of the most important things you could realize is that you're not alone. Around every corner, always protect the engine that powers you. I was raised by strong women, and that DNA is in my daughter and wife. If I love you, I show you I love you every day. Little things, big things. I knew credibility would come only in time and through earnest performances. It is no surprise that animation is Hollywood's most successful and innovative genre. Football changed my life, and it gave me a platform to get out my aggression, and it gave me a sense of value. I learned a long time ago how to be coachable. I can hold my own when it comes to burping. I've got a good feeling that I could win a championship. There are definitely people who disagree with certain creative decisions you make. Pleasing everyone is pretty hard. I enjoyed working with Stephen Merchant. He was wonderful. I've been such a big fan of his acting. The single most powerful thing I can be is to be myself. With drive and a bit of talent, you can move mountains. I know. I've done it. Not only do I think being nice and kind is easy, but being kind, in my opinion, is important. I would never win an award for not loving pizza. Nutrition is so important. It can't be stressed enough. I can eat 2 large pizzas and a tray of brownies in one sitting. I'm not sharing that. We can get another one, but I ain't sharing. My goal was never to be the loudest or the craziest. It was to be the most entertaining. As an athlete, you better laugh at yourself when you slip in the mud. The one thing that I keep learning over and over again is that I don't know nothing. I mean, that's my life lesson. I was a bit challenged when I was younger to stay on the right path. What I like to do is get the family in the pickup truck, and then we just go for a drive. That's it. Some of the kids in school used to call my father a fake or a phony. That kind of thing brought on a few fights. I don't have a need for speed. I'm not that guy. I don't have a need for speed. I'm not that guy. I've always loved the showmanship of professional wrestling. While I love making movies, I love that platform, too. I played with 2 lines of action figures when I was a kid, G.I. Joe and Star Wars. The successful men I admired all built their bodies. When I was 8, I thought I was Harrison Ford, Gene Wilder, Richard Pryor, Elvis, and Chuck Norris all at once. I was fortunate and I was lucky that I had a couple of people in my life who cared about me. I had good, loving parents. It's the philosophies of being an athlete that carry me today. The Revlon run/walk effort to focus on women's cancer has my wholehearted support and gratitude. My genetic makeup is one of physicality. I'm a visceral guy. The only film I've enjoyed starring a wrestler was Mickey Rourke in The Wrestler. There's this lingering philosophy that movie stars shouldn't do TV. There's this lingering philosophy that movie stars shouldn't do TV. I want someone who can trust that my big hands are going to take care of them. As a father, safety is always a top-of-mind issue for me. With all the success that I've been lucky enough to get, that doesn't happen unless the home life is solid. I'm a passionate, hardcore fisherman. Biggest fish I caught? A 200-pound tarpon. If I want to be called The Rock, I'll be called The Rock. If I want to go back to wrestling, I'll go back to wrestling. You don't sign up for a divorce when you get married. It's very painful, but it's taught me a great deal about myself. We all live with cancer, whether it is present in ourselves or affects someone we love. The one thing I couldn't identify with was the blue cowboy outfit he put on. My grandfather was one of the very first, if not the first, Samoan wrestlers to become known on a worldwide basis. I started in action, and then I went to comedy school. My parents were actors or studio executives. To be immortalized in a ride is a very cool thing. I was a good football player, and I had a chance to play with some great players. Because of my wrestling background, nothing a director can throw at me on a set can faze me. In wrestling, there's a shelf life, and some wrestlers don't pay attention to the shelf life. If you tell me there's something I can't do, I'll want to do it even more, especially when it comes to entertaining. In Hollywood, a lot of times when something is in development, It just takes a lot of time. I know Governor Christie. We've met a couple of times. Wrestling is intimate. You can reach out and touch the wrestlers. I love making movies, but there's nothing like performing live. I've always loved the idea of playing Black Adam. I have good friends who are politicians on both sides. I knew early on that I wanted to entertain in some form. And I knew I would work as hard as anyone to do it. When he speaks to you, he speaks with an earnest vibe and an earnest energy. I've been fortunate to have had the life I had prior to Hollywood. I wasn't starving. I was going to eat the next day. When I was 10, I won the horseshoe throwing contest at summer camp. I was also the wiffle ball champion in my town. When I was 10, I won the horseshoe throwing contest at summer camp. I was also the wiffle ball champion in my town. For different roles, my condition and training and diet does alter. Depending on the role, it will really dictate the type of training I do. Don't go through life, grow through life. One of the best things to do sometimes is simply to be. We don't change what we are. We change what we think what we are. The one thing that a fish can never find is water, and the one thing that man can never find is God. God can only do for you what he can do through you. Your fortune is not something to find but to unfold. Where you are in consciousness has everything to do with what you see and experience. Our job is not to set things right but to see them right. I am not what I think. I am thinking what I think. Fundamentalists believe Jesus was God becoming man. I believe that Jesus was man becoming God. While many people are trying to be in tune with infinite, what they really are is in tune with the indefinite. There is nothing to writing. All you do is sit down at a typewriter and bleed. Always do sober what you said you'd do drunk. That will teach you to keep your mouth shut. An intelligent man is sometimes forced to be drunk to spend time with his fools. I like to listen. I have learned a great deal from listening carefully. Most people never listen. Happiness in intelligent people is the rarest thing I know. We are all apprentices in a craft where no one ever becomes a master. As you get older, it is harder to have heroes, but it is sort of necessary. What is moral is what you feel good after, and what is immoral is what you feel bad after. To be a successful father, there's one absolute rule. When you have a kid, don't look at it for the first 2 years. All good books have one thing in common. They are truer than if they had really happened. It's none of their business that you have to learn how to write. Let them think you were born that way. I rewrote the ending to Farewell to Arms, the last page of it, 39 times before I was satisfied. Fear of death increases in exact proportion to increase in wealth. Writing and travel broaden your ass if not your mind, and I like to write standing up. No weapon has ever settled a moral problem. It can impose a solution, but it cannot guarantee it to be a just one. I don't like to write like God. It is only because you never do it, though, that the critics think you can't do it. A man's got to take a lot of punishment to write a really funny book. Once writing has become your major vice and greatest pleasure, only death can stop it. But man is not made for defeat. A man can be destroyed but not defeated. The best way to find out if you can trust somebody is to trust them. The world breaks everyone, and afterward, some are strong at the broken places. There is nothing noble in being superior to your fellow men. True nobility lies in being superior to your former self. I love sleep. My life has the tendency to fall apart when I'm awake, you know? In modern war, you will die like a dog for no good reason. Never think that war, no matter how necessary, nor how justified, is not a crime. The world is a fine place and worth the fighting for, and I hate very much to leave it. When people talk, listen completely. Most people never listen. Hesitation increases in relation to risk in equal proportion to age. I know now that there is no one thing that is true, it is all true. For a long time now I have tried simply to write the best I can. Sometimes I have good luck and write better than I can. A writer of fiction is really a congenital liar who invents from his own knowledge or that of other men. About morals, I know only that what is moral is what you feel good after, and what is immoral is what you feel bad after. Prose is architecture, not interior decoration, and the Baroque is over. That terrible mood of depression of whether it's any good or not is what is known as the artist's reward. Why should anybody be interested in some old man who was a failure? Cowardice is almost always simply a lack of ability to suspend functioning of the imagination. When writing a novel, a writer should create living people, people not characters. A character is a caricature. All my life I've looked at words as though I were seeing them for the first time. All modern American literature comes from one book by Mark Twain called Huckleberry Finn. For a war to be just, three conditions are necessary: public authority, just cause, right motive. Pound's crazy. All poets are. They have to be. You don't put a poet like Pound in the loony bin. I never had to choose a subject. My subject rather chose me. You can wipe out your opponents. But if you do it unjustly, you become eligible for being wiped out yourself. My aim is to put down on paper what I see and what I feel in the best and simplest way. The game of golf would lose a great deal if croquet mallets and billiard cues were allowed on the putting green. I know only that what is moral is what you feel good after, and what is immoral is what you feel bad after. Ezra was right half the time. And when he was wrong, he was so wrong you were never in any doubt about it. Alcohol may be man's worst enemy, but the Bible says love your enemy. May you live to be 100, and may the last voice you hear be mine. I'm for whatever gets you through the night. I like intelligent women. When you go out, it shouldn't be a staring contest. Whatever else has been said about me personally is unimportant. When I sing, I believe. I'm honest. I'm not one of those complicated, mixed-up cats. I'm not looking for the secret to life. I just go on from day to day, taking what comes. Rock and roll, the most brutal, ugly, desperate, vicious form of expression it has been my misfortune to hear. My father had a piano that was a Nickelodeon. Put a nickel, and the roller would play. Oh, I just wish someone would try to hurt you so I could kill them for you. Basically, I'm for anything that gets you through the night. Be it prayer, tranquilizers, or a bottle of Jack Daniels. A man doesn't know what happiness is until he's married. By then, it's too late. You gotta love livin', baby, 'cause dying is a pain in the ass. You treat a lady like a dame, and a dame like a lady. Hell hath no fury like a hustler with a literary agent. In Hoboken, when I was a kid, I lived in a plenty tough neighborhood. Nothing anybody's said or written about me ever bothers me, except when it does. The martial music of every side-burned delinquent on the face of the earth. Failures are infinitely more instructive than successes. It's possible for me to make a bad movie out of a good script, but I can't make a good movie from a bad script. I don't like to share my personal life. It wouldn't be personal if I shared it. I've been lucky enough to do a few films that will last longer than an opening weekend, and those films are the ones I'm proud of. I'm not smart enough and I don't know enough about what's going on. I watch Batman and Robin from time to time. It's the worst movie I ever made, so it's a good lesson in humility. Anyone would be lying if they said they didn't get lonely at times. The simple truth is that everyone has an opinion. Everyone has the right to voice it, and they should if they want to. You get better as an actor over time if you're growing, like singers. I do happen to have a good life, but I also like to work. I feel like I got the brass ring and I got very lucky in this. I had a Tesla. I was one of the first cats with a Tesla. But I'm telling you, I've been on the side of the road a while in that thing. I think anyone who is famous is a moron if they're on Twitter. It's just stupid. I grew up in the world of bad television. On my dad's sets and then as a young schmuck on dating shows and so on. I enjoy going on motorcycle trips and stopping in small towns and enjoying drinks with the locals. You never really learn much from hearing yourself talk. I had to stop going to auditions thinking, oh, I hope they like me. I had to go in thinking I was the answer to their problem. You have only a short period of time in your life to make your mark, and I'm there now. Run for office? No. I've slept with too many women. I've done too many drugs, and I've been to too many parties. I don't care. Charlton Heston is the head of the National Rifle Association. He deserves whatever anyone says about him. I find that as you get older, you start to simplify things in general. It's incredibly unfair. You don't see a lot of 60-year-old women with 20-year-old men on screen. I was in a bar and I said to a friend, "You know, we've become those 40-year-old guys we used to look at and say, 'Isn't it sad?' If you're famous, I don't. For the life of me, I don't understand why any famous person would ever be on Twitter. If I had been with all the women that I was said to have been with, I wouldn't have had the time to shoot a single movie." Shutting down the government is not how you make government work. After doing one fine day and playing a pediatrician on ER, I'll never have kids. I'm going to have a vasectomy. There's no connection between Al-Qaeda and Iraq. I'm certainly the last person to give advice on, well, anything. The problem is, we elected a manager and we need a leader. Let's face it, Bush is just dim. Directing is really exciting. In the end, it's more fun to be the painter than the paint. I get asked a lot about getting into politics. I say, take a look at politics. You tell me what seems appealing about that. It's not about an opening weekend. It's about a career. Building a set of films you're proud of. Period. I go on YouTube when somebody says to look something up. Directing is much more satisfying to me than acting. Ides of March I did for Scale. Scale as a director. Scale as an actor. Scale as a writer. I can't give you 150 takes. I can't even give you 30 different ways of doing it. I don't have the talent or the range for it. I rarely tell anybody what they should be doing with their life. I'm a method actor. I spent years training for the drinking and carousing I had to do in this film. Who would name their kid Jack with the last words off at the end of the last name? No wonder that guy is screwed up. I just found out about 10 days ago that I must live 300 or 400 yards from Britney Spears. So now I have to move. I have a real interest in pushing some of the limits of things that studios don't want to make. Most of the films I've done haven't done particularly well. I'm surprised I'm continuing to work. I don't know if winning at any cost is wrong or not. There are times I've thought that the end justified the means. Over the years, over the history of our country, liberals have stood on many of the right sides of the issues. One of my favorite films is Big Fish, which I think is a masterpiece. Having Oscar winner on your tombstone is a great thing. Good words are worth much, and cost little. A lean compromise is better than a fat lawsuit. Be calm in arguing, for fierceness makes error a fault, and truth discourtesy. Read as you taste fruit or savor wine, or enjoy friendship, love or life. If a donkey bray at you, don't bray at him. None knows the weight of another's burden. The buyer needs 100 eyes, the seller not one. Sweet spring, full of sweet days and roses, a box where sweets compacted lie. In conversation, humor is worth more than wit and easiness more than knowledge. The mouse that hath but one hole is quickly taken. Throw away thy rod, throw away thy wrath. O my God, take the gentle path. It is part of a poor spirit to undervalue himself and blush. Better never begin than never make an end. One father is more than 100 schoolmasters. A gentle heart is tied with an easy thread. Skill and confidence are an unconquered army. Prayer should be the key of the day and the lock of the night. Life is half spent before we know what it is. Deceive not thy physician, confessor, nor lawyer. He that will learn to pray, let him go to sea. There is great force hidden in a gentle command. The devil divides the world between atheism and superstition. There is an hour wherein a man might be happy all his life, could he find it. He that hath lost his credit is dead to the world. There would be no great men if there were no little ones. Hell is full of good meanings and wishings. Speak not of my debts unless you mean to pay them. We all have big changes in our lives that are more or less a second chance. My approach to acting is the Let's Pretend school of acting. The actor's popularity is evanescent, applauded today, forgotten tomorrow. You know you're getting old when all the names in your black book have M.D. after them. Really, what are the options? Levi's or Wranglers? And you just pick one. It's one of those life choices. If I were a serious person, I'd probably have a real job. You may get real tired watching me, but I'm not going to quit. I get mad when people call me an action movie star. Indiana Jones is an adventure film, a comic book, a fantasy. It's very little trouble for me to accommodate my fans, unless I'm actually taking a pee at the time. The kindest word to describe my performance in school was sloth. All my friends were going off to be professionals, and I said I wanted to be an actor. Directing is too hard. It takes too much time, and it doesn't pay very well. I accrued anger from people's low opinion of me and my work, and for the work I might be capable of. I was completely unprepared for the public spectacle my private life became, and didn't like it a bit. I was never that much a focus of interest in my career. I'm aware of that now, which doesn't give me a lot of pleasure. My goal was just to work regularly. I didn't ever expect to be rich or famous. I wanted to be a working character actor. Some actors couldn't figure out how to withstand the constant rejection. They couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. What I observed about my fellow actors was that most gave up very easily. Am I grumpy? I might be. But I think maybe sometimes it's misinterpreted. I don't like baseball movies. I like movies about moral courage and people who are indomitable and courageous and right. I was always very grateful I was never hot. In the entire length of my career, I haven't been the most adored. I don't do a huge amount of physical activity. I play tennis, I work out sporadically, and I eat well and take care of myself. I could take Sean Connery in a fight. I could definitely take him. Bikes and planes aren't about going fast or having fun. They're toys, but serious ones. I enjoyed carpentry, and it was very good to me for 12 years. I love the comic opportunities that come up in the context of a father-son relationship. I've always been somewhere down from the top, so I've never had to suffer being knocked off the top. My older kids are fantastic people. It can't be the result of my influence on them. If you're asking me to acknowledge that I've gotten older, I can do that. I rarely play a real person, because I don't think I'm a good imitator. Starring in a science fiction film doesn't mean you have to act science fiction. I don't do nostalgia. It just doesn't occur to me. I'm living in the moment, and I don't have that gene. The original Star Wars that I was a part of really was the beginning of my working life. I'm not a poster boy for Conservation International. I'm a working member of the board. The concept of surveillance is ingrained in our beings. God was the original surveillance camera. How do you manage your online identity? It's something I talk about with my students all the time. I've pretty much accepted the fact that you're going to meet ignorant people, and that's okay. You can't control that. You can't change that. Big Brother doesn't like all these little brothers looking at it. I'm convinced that if we don't define ourselves, other people will do it for us, and inaccurately. We're all creating an archive of our own lives, whether we're aware of it or not. If 300 million people were to offer up the details of their private lives, you would need to hire another 300 million people just to keep up. It's incredibly disturbing when a country, particularly your own country, uses discrimination as a basis for an investigation. We don't know what the next generation of art is going to look like. We're kind of making it up as we go along. Not unlike the tech industry. To this day, I get very nervous coming back into my own country. Despite the barrage of information about me that is publicly available, I live a surprisingly private and anonymous life. You can accuse me of being a terror suspect, but I can prove to you that I'm not. Information agencies operate in an industry that values data. Restricted access to information is what makes it valuable. I'm an artist, and usually when I tell people I'm an artist, they just look at me and say, "Do you paint? Or what kind of medium do you work in?" It's really weird watching the government watch me. I only do this because I'm having fun. The day I stop having fun, I'll just walk away. If you're just safe about the choices you make, you don't grow. I don't feel like I have anything to lose, so I don't really understand what I'm putting at risk. From 18 to 22, I was alone, living in LA with a bunch of friends, partying. In order not to hold a frame with someone, you have to be intimidated by them. I feel like I've never been in a film that people have liked before. I generally don't think most situations can be labeled as black or white. I don't know, as long as I get to evolve and grow as an actor and as a person, that's the stuff I'm after. I've never figured out who is on film. This is what you expect when you hire me, and it will be recognizable. Had I listened to my agent, I'd be running around in tights, climbing buildings and stuff. I am not a public speaker and never will be. In my opinion, New York City police officers are brave. If you make decisions based upon people's reactions or judgments, then you make really boring choices. If you are just safe about the choices you make, you don't grow. It can be a little distressing to have to over-intellectualize yourself. I never took an acting class, so I've made all my mistakes on film. I'm in control of my life, not anyone in Hollywood. I thought, I need to be more cautious about my choices. It reflects on who I am. I feel like I'm wasting time if I repeat myself. There's nothing like working with your mates. It's the way it should be, as far as I'm concerned. You learn more about yourself through your child, I guess. I'm just not one of those naturally funny, relaxed actors who enjoy the spotlight and are so good at it. You know, I'm not in a hurry, and everybody else in Hollywood, particularly agents and managers, they're all in a hurry. When I'm not acting, I do like to take a year off at a time, at least if I can, just in order to keep acting exciting. Otherwise I get bored very quickly. It's rare that there's a role that requires an Australian accent. I don't have that much forward planning about what I want to do next, or in the future. I have a lot of great distractions outside of acting. When I started to watch some of the films I'd done, I realized I was doing movies that I might not actually want to see. I wasn't going to have fun doing a teen movie again. I never thought of myself as unlucky. When you aim high, it's tough to get there unless something really fortunate happens. No matter what era we're in, we need hope. Not every job is a good job. My version of Superman is essentially of a guy who has spent his whole life alone. At boarding school there wasn't much time for much of anything except education. The hardest part of acting is not being guaranteed work. Every job could be your last. I don't think Americans look bad in spandex. I work out 2.5 hours a day. For Immortals, it was body weight stuff, crunches, pull-ups, and martial arts-based cardio. It's difficult to judge other actors, because as an actor you're looking at different things than what an audience is looking at. As an outside, don't worry about failure, because failure will take care of itself. Focus on success. My mother works in a bank, and my dad is the head of my management team and also works in finance. The point of acting is to pretend you're someone else and sell a story. I'm a giant softie, for sure, but I honestly think these days it's probably considered more masculine to be emotionally connected. I like to go full bore into something. If you have a backup plan, then you've already admitted defeat. I didn't see a lot of comic books growing up. I work out 2.5 hours a day. I'm from a family of 6 men, so I'm bound to be physical. Older men declare war, but it is the youth that must fight and die. Freedom is the open window through which pours the sunlight of the human spirit and human dignity. Blessed are the young, for they shall inherit the national debt. Words without actions are the assassins of idealism. Peace is not made at the council table or by treaties, but in the hearts of men. There are only three ways to meet the unpaid bills of a nation. The first is taxation. The second is repudiation. The third is inflation. The use of the atomic bomb, with its indiscriminate killing of women and children, revolts my soul. Prosperity cannot be restored by raids upon the public treasury. Honor is not the exclusive property of any political party. The New Deal repudiation of democracy has left the Republican Party alone, the guardian of the Ark of the Covenant with its Charter of Freedom. A good many things go around in the dark besides Santa Claus. This is not a showman's job. I will not step out of character. Economic freedom cannot be sacrificed if political freedom is to be preserved. Wisdom oftentimes consists of knowing what to do next. Wisdom consists not so much in knowing what to do in the ultimate as knowing what to do next. The thing I enjoyed most were visits from children. They did not want public office. With impressive proof on all sides of magnificent progress, no one can rightly deny the fundamental correctness of our economic system. We have not yet reached the goal, but we shall soon, with the help of God, be in sight of the day when poverty shall be banished from this nation. Next to religion, baseball has had a greater impact on our American way of life than any other American institution. A whole people with the ballot in their hands possess the most conclusive and unlimited power ever entrusted to humanity. Let me remind you that credit is the lifeblood of business, the lifeblood of prices and jobs. Self-government can succeed only through an instructed electorate. There are only two occasions when Americans respect privacy, especially in presidents. Those are prayer and fishing. Competition is not only the basis of protection to the consumer, but is the incentive to progress. Fishing is much more than fish. It is the great occasion when we may return to the fine simplicity of our forefathers. About the time we can make the ends meet, somebody moves the ends. The spirit of liberalism is to create free men. It is not the regimentation of men. I'm the only person of distinction who has ever had a depression named for him. Children are our most valuable natural resource. When there is a lack of honor in government, the morals of the whole people are poisoned. If the law is upheld only by government officials, then all law is at an end. In America today, we are nearer a final triumph over poverty than is any other land. The pause between the errors and trials of the day and the hopes of the night. Democracy is not static, it is a living force. Every new idea, every new invention offers opportunity for both good and evil. New discoveries in science will continue to create 1,000 new frontiers for those who still would adventure. It is just as important that business keep out of government as that government keep out of business. America, a great social and economic experiment, noble in motive and far-reaching in purpose. Peace can be contributed to by respect for our ability and defense. It is the youth who must inherit the tribulation, the sorrow, that are the aftermath of war. No greater nor more affectionate honor can be conferred on an American than to have a public school named after him. The glory of the nation rests in the character of her men. And character comes from boyhood. Thus, every boy is a challenge to his elders. To me, the smell of fresh-made coffee is one of the greatest inventions. I'm a big goofball, you know. Don't tell anyone that. But I'm a big goofball. In Australia we call it a dag. Coming to terms with our true natures and who we really are has always been a fascination to humans. I know it fascinates me. It dawned on me that acting was what I wanted to do with my life. Nothing had ever touched my heart like acting did. For me, that's one of the great indulgences in life. A hand-tailored suit, and a great pair of handmade shoes. Anyone who thinks they're indispensable is fooling themselves. I'm an actor who believes we all have triggers to any stage of emotion. It's not always easy to find, but it's still there. I just love making a fool out of myself. I made my living as a clown at kids' parties for about 3 years. I've always felt that if you back down from a fear, the ghost of that fear never goes away. It diminishes people. To get down to the quick of it, respect motivates me, not success. I feel so lucky to have both a son and a daughter, because there's a different relationship with each of them. I never wanted to go longer than 5 years off the stage. Not necessarily musicals, but just doing a play or something. Salvatore Ferragamo have done some nice handmade suits for me. Being on Broadway is the modern equivalent of being a monk. I sleep a lot, eat a lot, and rest a lot. I have a wife and a son, but the gay rumors have started. I guess it's a sign that I'm moving up the ladder. You have to eat before you train. Otherwise, that really intense training, after about 40 minutes you start to flag. Your wife is always right. Very simple. I think I'm going to get it tattooed on my forehead. Actually, I graduated from university as a journalist. I've dreamt of being in a movie musical for a long time. For some reason I never even thought Les Mis would be possible. But anyone who's done a musical knows, whether you're dancing or not, physically it's the most difficult thing you can do. I have 2 children and it's amazing how in tune they are with nature, with light, with smells, with time. If I'm a lush at anything, it's food and drink. I'm not materialistic in any way, but I value food. I've always felt embraced by the Broadway community even before I felt like I earned it. As you get older you have more respect and empathy for your parents. Now I have a great relationship with both of them. I like the Rolling Stones for karaoke. Sympathy for the Devil is a great one. But in another world, another life, probably growing up in another country, I might have been more of a dancer. That's all about the natural order of things. The idea of nature protecting children but also children protecting nature. I'm quite a competitive person, so I do quite like to win. My gosh, I love food. If I wasn't an actor, I could be a completely different body shape right now. I wanted to be a lawyer, then a journalist, Actually, I graduated from university as a journalist. When you dance, your body just wants to find its natural weight. I'm naturally a lot more Tommy Tune than I am Wolverine. My mom and I are, in many ways, quite similar. We're both creative, gregarious, and energetic. Rich countries have been sending aid to poor countries for the last 60 years. And, by and large, this has failed. China has an almost infinite need for energy, and frankly, the world would be better off if much of that need goes in the direction of wind power. A military or government hierarchy is anathema to the dispersed population and diverse tribes of mountainous Afghanistan. The history of Europe over the last several centuries provides clear evidence of the transformative power of commerce. Pakistan is riddled with problems that are rooted in the disproportionate power of the state. Aid has only boosted that power. Poor countries are poor because they are wasting their resources. The best way poor people can come out of their poverty is to get on the global highway, not on some dirt side road. When leaders are no longer beholden to the people who elected them, corruption results and the recruitment of extremists becomes easier. Just as entrepreneurs developed America, they can develop other countries, too. We should encourage governments to be sustained by citizens' taxes, that is, democracies. Democracies will be enduring allies of America. I'm motivated by creating a level playing field for the world so that the weak have a chance.